Good afternoon. This is Eric Markland of Markland Designs of Atlanta, and today I'm going to be discussing questions that I believe you should be asking your installer when or before going forward with doing an audio build on your ATV or Harley Davidson motorcycle. So, I've had a great relationship with a mentor and close friend of mine, Carlos Ramirez of NVS Audio in New Jersey. And me and him talk all the time, and we always discuss about these motorcycles and wiring rescues and fixing this and upgrading that. And these are just a couple of questions that are asked to us all the time. And these are questions that I believe that as an installer, you should be actually telling your client as well. So I'm gonna share a few, not gonna go super, in depth. I might miss a couple things. If you have anything to add, definitely put it down in the comment section. But these are a couple things that, I believe you should be asking your installer, and I'm gonna be adding my own tidbits in it as well, as far as things that the installer should be saying to the potential client. Our sales guy that should be saying to the potential client. So first is picking the right equipment for the job. And I say that because, I've come across several bikes that have car audio specific equipment in a Harley Davidson or ATV. Is anything wrong with car audio equipment? Absolutely not. But you have to ask yourself, will this equipment hold up in a environment that is exposed to the elements? Answer is no. It's designed for a car, which is covered. When you start adding in rain, humidity, even hail, for instance, these type of things wear down on this equipment because it's not designed for that type of exposure. Now, you might have some speakers that are water resistant, but there's a big difference between water resistant and waterproof. So just keep that in mind. And then also when it comes down to just picking the right equipment that's going to fit in your ATV or your motorcycle. Like for instance, we have a Helix P6 DSP MK2. This is a awesome amplifier. 6-channel amplifier, built-in DSP. I mean, it is amazing. Would I put this in a vehicle like a ATV or a motorcycle? Absolutely not. Would I put this in my personal car? Yes, I definitely would. It's a pretty large amplifier for one, and some of the components inside of it, like some of the heck modules and stuff, just don't want to see a lot of vibration compared to something like a Sound Digital Evo X 804. I mean, look at the size difference. This here is not going to fit in most ATVs or Harley Davidson motorcycles. All right. Now, speaking on the Sound Digital 804, I mean, just look at the size of it. It's compact, has lots of power, and can fit basically anywhere in a Harley Davidson motorcycle. Whether you want to put in the fairing, the bags, tour pack. This, you can fit multiple of these in various locations in these type of vehicles, right? So next question is, where is the equipment going to get mounted, and how are you going to mount it? So these are questions that you need to ask, because if you have a lot of things in your bags or your tour pack, if they're going to install this in the tour pack or your bags, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to give up a lot of space? These are questions you need to ask. You can't just hand the keys over to the installer and just allow them to pick the decision, because, if the bike comes in and there's nothing in the bags, they might assume that, well, he doesn't really put stuff in the bags. But what if you do? Now you have a bag full of amplifiers and wires and stuff like that. Now you've lost space. So these are questions that you need to actually, discuss with your sales guy or installer to make sure that he or she knows this before moving forward with the installation. And nothing as far as serviceability. When these are in the tour pack or bags, how easily is he or she going to install this equipment so that it can be pulled in and out very quickly? If you have a flat tire, can you pull the bag off, or will you have to cut all the wires? Will they use things like quick connects? Right? Or will they just run the wire, and something happens, you got to get a pair of scissors or a knife and just cut the wires and You get home and you have to go back to the shop and they got to run new wires. And I mean, these are things that you have to really ask yourself. Like for instance, if you have the boom audio system, everything is pretty much plug and play. Another thing, speaking on that, is you know the wire should be run to the lower of the bag, not on the upper of the bag. If the boom audio has the wires in the lower of the bag, your installer should be running the wires to the lower of the bag. They shouldn't be at the top of the bag. Number one, it looks ugly, and two, it's just as far as a safety and serviceability issue, you don't want to have wires at the top of the bag. You want them at the lower of the bag. So speaking of quick connects, these are two different types of quick connects. We have, your standard waterproof connectors here. This one is a 4-pin, and then we have the ones that I like to use. I mean, I have used these before, but these are the TX60s. Me and Carlos use these a lot. Very, very nice quick connect, waterproof. You have the ends here that you can solder on and put the shrink tube over it. I do that a lot. I'll probably have a video or a picture in one of the corners here, kind of showing you how I do that. And then also things like here. You have these waterproof grommets. We have this size here is 0 gauge, and we have 4 gauge. And the cool thing about these waterproof grommets is that when you're running wires through bags or into a tour pack, when you run the wire through it, as you tighten it, there's an O-ring in here, and as you tighten it, it actually collapses and creates a complete seal. So it actually collapses on itself, and as you release it, it opens up. So it allows you to run the wire through, and then as you tighten it, the actual seal compresses around it, which is really cool. These are a no-brainer. Anybody working on motorcycles should be using waterproof grommets. I mean, it just is a no-brainer. This is a non-negotiable as far as me. It should be. You run your wires through it, tighten it down, lock it in, and at the end of it, you will have your quick connects coming out of it. You just unplug it, take the bag off, take the tour pack out, whatever you have and you're good to go. All right? And then another thing as far as protection of your investment, your ATV or your bike, are they wrapping it in tape? Are they using Tessa exterior tape? Are you using crash wrap? Things like that. If you're walking around the bike and bumping it, you don't want to scratch up a $10,000, $15,000 paint job. You want to make sure that your bike is actually being protected professionally. You don't want to just have your bike, a couple towels thrown on it, or just nothing at all. Because when you drop it off in great condition and you come back and it's full of scratches, that's not good. Especially some of these paints that have pearls and color changing paints. I mean, that's not something that's easily touched, that you can just touch up. You're gonna have to pretty much repaint that entire side or that entire panel, and that can be a very costly mistake. Okay, and another thing as far as wire, all wire is not the same. You need to ask your installer or sales guy, what type of wire are you guys using? This is a generic amp kit. I'm not going to name the amp kit manufacturer just because I'm not into the business of bashing anybody. But for instance, this was sold as a motorcycle kit, right? And it has 8 gauge wire, right? But this is CCA aluminum wire, and this is not going to allow you to get the full amount of current flow, right? And then here we have Stinger oxygen-free copper. This is what I use. All right, this is really nice wire. From RCA's, power wire, speaker wire, it's always going to be Stinger for me. Now you have other brands like Sky High Car Audio, say New Concepts. There are other brands that do sell OFC wire. I just prefer to deal with Stinger. But you need to make sure that you're running oxygen-free copper. If you can't go to whoever's installing your equipment and say, I don't need to see the wire that I'm running or that you're going to be putting, that's a problem. They should be able to show you all the wire that they're going to be running in your bike. If they have to order your stuff, I'd be a little skeptical. But hey, I mean, some people they might not stock wire by the spool. Me, I have about, let me see, 15 spools of wire at my disposal at any given moment. And then also, you need to ask, where's the wire? How are you going to run the wire? Is the wire going to be exposed? Is it going to be covered in Tech Flex? Is it going to be covered in Tessa tape? Is it going to be shrink loom? Split loom? These are questions that you need to ask, because if you have a beautiful bike and you just have a big run of split loom, you might not like the way that looks. It could really throw the look off, you know? So these are questions that you might want to ask, and say, hey, you know, is my wire going to be exposed? If you're running blue wire or silver wire, you might want to wrap that wire in Tech Flex or Tessa tape or something to protect it, but also conceal it to where it looks like it's running along with the OEM wiring, right? Okay, and then let me see what else we got. Tuning, right? So let's get back to kind of how we're going as far as DSPs, right? So we have DSP, we have a Helix, DSP.2. This is an older unit, right? And then we have a, put that right here. We have a Zapco, DSP Z8, right? And then we have a DSR1, right? These are all great DSPs, right? Move this out of the way. But as with the amplifier, you got to ask yourself, which one is going to fit easily into my Harley Davidson or ATV, all right? So you have other ones like the Audison amplifier, I'm sorry, DSPs. I know Carlos does a lot of those. I've done a couple of them myself. We have the DSR1. These are very, very small DSPs. But then you have ones like, you know, even the Helix, the DSP2 is fairly small. Not much smaller, not much bigger than the DSR1, just the actual box is a little bit bigger. But then you might have a larger unit like the Zapco, or if you have a audio control. I had a client came in and had a audio control DSP installed, and I mean the thing is huge, and it, you know, had to go in the bag. You got to ask yourself, you know, what are we doing here? You know, you have all this, you know, you have smaller DSPs, some of them more powerful. Do I need this humongous DSP in my motorcycle? Do I believe every motorcycle needs a DSP? Absolutely, every single time. I don't care if you flash the radio or whatever, I think a DSP is needed all the time. But you have to make sure that you're getting the right DSP for your application, and will it fit? That's a huge thing that you need to be asking yourself. Would I put like a, I'm trying to think of a really big DSP on a bike. Would I put a Bit 1 in a bike? No, it's too big. Is it a great DSP? It's good. It's got great features, you know, but am I going to fit this on a bike comfortably? No, I'll probably use one of the smaller, like a Bit 10, DSR1, or, you know, something like a, you know, I don't know if I would necessarily use a DSP.2 Helix on a bike. But yeah, I would definitely use a DSR1, something like that. You know, no problem. And then, can they tune the bike? I have a lot of bikes that come in and they have DSPs on them, and the tune is terrible. I'm not saying I'm the best tuner in the world. I'm definitely not saying that. But you have to know what you're doing when you're using these types of DSPs. These are very powerful DSPs. They, you know, they have time alignment. You know, some of them have up to 128 bands of equalization. You know, some of them are graphics, some are parametric. You know, phase. You know, all pass. All these type of, you know, things that you, if you get in there and you get over your head, you can literally have a bike leaving sounding worse than it came in because you're not, you have the wrong crossover points. Your slopes are wrong. Your timeline is, I mean, all types of different variants. You're putting things out of phase, in phase. All these things can result in having great product and it sounds terrible. And I think Carlos did a video on this a while back, and it's one of the things. You can have all the best equipment, but if the tune is bad, it's going to be bad. Like, it's just no getting around it. So these are something that you need to really ask yourself. Make sure that your installer is comfortable tuning and has the equipment. Does he have an oscilloscope? Does he have a RTA? Does he have a mic to work with the RTA? Does he have true RTA? Does he have, REW? All these type of things, they need to have to, tune your bike properly. I'm sorry, you just really can't tune a bike by ear. You can to a degree, but that's a very small, to getting some of the really, really fine frequencies and make sure your crossover points are right and, things like that, you need a proper knowledge base on how to use a DSP, in my opinion. And then, let me see what else we got. Another thing. For instance, let's talk about, because I run into this situation a lot. So we have a Sound Digital. This is not an Evo X. This is one of the Evos. It's a 1201D, right? Great amplifier. It's crazy because now the Evo X's put out more power, but have a smaller chassis, right? So we have this one here, right? You see the inputs. Now I know that limitations as far as space and running wires is a problem, but if you can get 4 gauge into this amplifier, run 4 gauge. 8 gauge is not going to cut it. To make power, it takes power. And I've had guys with 3,000 watt amplifiers, 4,000 watt amplifiers on a bike, and they're feeding it 8 gauge wire. And they're like, man, I don't know why I spent all this money and I just can't get the performance. Well, if the bike can't see the power, or I'm sorry, if the amplifiers can't see the power, it can't put out the power. And there's no way you can pull that much power through 8 gauge wire or 10 gauge. I've seen 10 gauge on a 1500 watt. No, it was a 1600. I think it was a 1601. It's older Sound Digital, and they had 10 gauge wire running to it. And it actually started to overheat and basically burned out. And, the guy was like, well, amplifier, I think the amplifier is shot. And, no, it was just a poor install. So, it goes back to what I was saying as far as asking your installer, what size wire am I running? These are all questions that I think are legitimate questions before getting into it. I know sometimes it can be kind of tedious and you don't want to seem like you're overstepping your bounds, but if you're spending the money for this equipment, you definitely want to ask these questions, because it's nothing worse than spending, $7,000-8,000 on a bike install and product, and then you pull a lid off or take the fairing off and you see that you have 10 gauge wire running to your 3,000 watt amplifier. I know I'd be upset if that was me, and I know you guys would be upset too, because you spend this money, you want to have good performance. So yeah, like I said, these are just a couple questions that I thought that you should ask your installer, and your salesman should be telling you before going into a installation on your ATV or your Harley Davidson motorcycle. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed. I know there's a lot I missed. I didn't want to touch on every single thing. Like, I didn't want to get into fabrication heavy, besides talking about, custom mounts for your equipment and grommets and stuff like that, and, your quick connects. But yeah, these are a couple things. If there's anything else that you would like for me to touch on in the future, let me know. I will definitely make a video on it. I do apologize. I've had a extended vacation from YouTube. Had a lot of things going on outside of 12 volts. that has just kind of allowed me to have to kind of step away a little bit, but I'm slowly getting things back in rolling. So if anybody's emailed me or called me or text, I do apologize. I will try to get back with you as soon as I can, but this is definitely something that I definitely feel needs to be discussed more, is just picking the right product. And I guess to me, they're simple things, but using the right connectors, um, the right grommets so that your bags aren't leaking when it rains or when you wash the bike, or just simple as using the right DSPs for your application. Know the limitations and know that if you're running a separate tweeter in a mid-range and a mid-bass, you might want to run a DSP so that you can run everything actively. When you run it active, you can send the right frequencies to the tweeter, the mid-range, and the mid-bass, and you can get the best performance out of your equipment. You can turn it up louder, safer. So yeah, these are a couple things, like I said, I just thought I would touch on. So again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And if you got any questions, comments, feel free to comment below. If you think I said anything incorrect, let me know. We can talk about it, discuss it. But yeah, these are just kind of simple things. You should definitely be asking your installer, he or she, whoever's doing the work. So thanks again. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.